It's been about 5 years since I started running Dungeons and Dragons games consistently. And I had the time to think about it the other day, and I wanted to kind of give myself some advice from me 5 years later. Hey, fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner, and welcome to the RPG Daily, your daily dose of all things tabletop role playing games helping you build your world and master your game. I know the idea of giving myself some advice from me now in the past doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it is the 21st century. Time travel could be just around the corner from being invented, so I better be ready. That's all. I'd rather be ready than not ready. In all seriousness, I was kind of reflecting on the beginning of my journey as a dungeon master and this hobby that I stepped into, not knowing how this would impact my life as a whole and what I would learn from it. And I thought of things that I wish I would have known or had thought about at that time. And so I'm sharing these with you in the form of talking to my past self. I would just want to let myself know, hey, you're doing all right, but here's some things you could have done better at to begin with. So if you don't like thinking of it as me giving my past self advice, think of it as me giving new DMs some advice or things that they might want to hear early on. The first thing I want you to remember is you should not go taking yourself too seriously. I know that The Lord of the Rings, the films, and then the books became a huge influence on your life from the day you walked out of a movie theater after watching The Fellowship of the Ring. And I know that's had an impact on a lot of the life choices you've made ever since then. But here's the thing. You're not J.R.R. Tolkien. You do not have the practice to write the adventures that he has written. And so it doesn't help you to try to meet that standard. Don't look at yourself and think that you have to match the masters. Look at yourself and think that you have to just tell a fun, good story with your friends. But here's the thing that they don't tell you early on, is years later, you'll look back at the adventures that you ran, no matter how stupid they were, with fondness, knowing that for you and those people around that table, they were special times, and they're going to stay with you forever. I still remember the time we gave Rick, yes, my name's Richard, I have a player named Rick, a brown tuning fork that would make a villain poop his pants. I still remember that, and I think that was hilarious, and it was a really good time, even if at that point you knew that it was a little too silly and not quite serious in what you were going for in your game. Life is not perfect. The stories that happen in our real lives are not perfect. They are messy, they have problems, they have plot holes just in real life. So let your story have that messiness and those plot holes, and let that bring some more fun to the table. Next, I want you to remember that this is a learning process, so be ready to keep learning. This is not a once you start DMing, you're going to be perfect at DMing for the rest of your life. This is a system. This is like a workout. Weightlifters don't go to a gym already being able to lift the weights that they do. They work at it. They build the muscles. They put in the effort, and then they reap the rewards later. But they also keep trying to lift heavier and heavier things. It's never over. And that's the same with this process. I know that starting this, you were overwhelmed. There was a lot of things you feel like you had to do. You had to draw the maps. You had to homebrew creatures. You had to come up with the adventure on your own. You had to become a mathematician suddenly. There was so much to do, and it was very overwhelming. But also know that you can take the time to learn the different things. You can take it step by step. You can focus on learn to run good combat first. Or you could focus on having good role-playing moments with your players first. You don't have to do it all at once. You can take your time and learn it over time, and that will be okay, and you'll get better at everything you do. But also, keep striving to make yourself better. Don't look at yourself and think, I'm already perfect the way I am. The best game masters online still work at their craft, even after 20 plus years of running games. Be ready for that. Make sure you give focus to different aspects of the game. In the Dungeon Master Guide, it says the 3 pillars of a role-playing game are combat, exploration, and social interaction. Give time to each of them in your own learning process. Take some time to focus on combat. Try to make more interesting combat for your players. Try to make more interesting combat for yourself. Learn the tactics. But then also take time to go learn about exploration and how that could work, and come up with ways to make exploration more interesting and use it more heavily in your games for a time. Try to learn about social interactions, study people, learn how people work, and how they can talk to the adventurers, and give that into your game even more. D&D is made up of all three parts. D&D isn't just the combat, it's not just the social interaction, it's not just the exploration. It's everything combined. So give them all its little bit of time, a little bit of time in the sun. It's okay to take breaks when you need. We all want a weekly game that meets up every time and has perfect running game for years and years and years. But here's the thing though, we're not kids anymore. You're growing up, you're getting out of college, you're starting a job, you're living your life, you're looking towards the future. At this point, you're in your 30s already and you're learning a new hobby. It's not very practical for you to expect that you play every week and that you can handle everything that comes from being a dungeon master. So when you find yourself burnt out, when you find yourself tired and exhausted after a day of work and you don't want to play a game the next day, or you don't want to prepare for a session, take a break. It's better to take the time to come back when you find yourself enjoying the activity. When you come back, you can enjoy preparing for a D&D session, as opposed to taking the time and forcing yourself to do something until you grow contempt for the hobby and you want to stop. Take breaks. It's okay to do, and the game will be there when you're done. Your players will be there when you're done, unless you end the campaign completely. The last tip I have for myself, I realized as I was writing it, it sounds kind of like a downer, but it's something I've been focusing on a lot in different aspects. This doesn't mean anything for the channel, this doesn't mean anything for me in the game, but it is something that I could have remembered, and I think other people could remember this, and it's pretty simple. It's this: when it stops being fun for you, stop. D&D and other tabletop games are games. They're supposed to be fun. You're supposed to have a good time, and that's the reason we got into this hobby. That's the reason I kept going back to the table. That's the reason I spent the time to learn how to do this part of it, was because it's fun. So if you ever find a time in your life where you look at it and you say, this is no longer fun for me, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to stop. This is a little more extreme than saying, okay, take a break. I'm saying if you find that there is an edition of Dungeons & Dragons that doesn't work for you, that you don't like it, well, you could always just play the older editions, but you could also just take a break. You could say, I don't want to be a DM anymore. I want to be a player. I want to find something else. You could someday feel like, I don't want to play tabletop role-playing games anymore. I just want to play video games. I just want to watch movies all day. I want to write a movie. I want to do something else. And when you feel those things, do it. Don't force yourself to keep doing something that you've fallen out of love with. It's not going to help you in the long run. It's possible that you'll run into a time when the game just won't be as enjoyable as it once was. You will find yourself not having the fun that you once had with it, and it's okay to step away and stop playing it at that point. And here's the trick. Here's the secret of this. Years from then, years from that point, when you walk away from the game, years later, it will be there. The tabletop gaming community is not going anywhere. 30 years from now, 40 years from now, there will be people playing tabletop role-playing games. It will be on 50th edition Dungeons & Dragons. No, not 50th. 10th edition Dungeons & Dragons will be out. It will all be virtual reality in the metaverse, or something of that sort. But the game will be there with open arms to welcome you back. So, if you don't enjoy it, take a long break. It's okay. I know that these tips can sound kind of downer, but there were things that I could have benefited from when I was first learning to be a DM, that I could have said, hey, I can take a break when I need to. I don't have to push through week after week playing a game if I'm burnt out and tired. So these kind of tips like that, I hope they're helpful to you. I've worked through some of these kind of situations myself. I've gotten to this point. I'm continuing, and I'm trying to also give myself tips for the future. Who knows what will happen? If you're new to Dungeons & Dragons and running games, keep these in mind. Don't push yourself beyond what you're capable of handling at this point in time. If you've just found the channel and you like what you see, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I've been Richard. Thanks for watching.